Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Richland County, South Carolina, July 17th, 2025, 6 o'clock a.m. Early on the morning of July 17th, a black resident of the Spring Valley subdivision was going for his morning jog. People who live in Spring Valley describe it as a quiet, mixed community. But a white supremacist who lives in your area will always shatter the peace. Security video captured the instant when a white man in a black BMW drove to the gate of the neighborhood, pulled a rifle from the passenger seat, and opened fire on a black resident for no reason at all. The gunman is heard on the video yelling, "Keep running, boy." The gunman was no more stealthy than he was subtle, so investigators were able to identify him, and because he's white, they took him in alive. The gunman was identified as 33-year-old Jonathan Felkel. He confessed that he had first spotted his victim at 4 o'clock a.m., 2 hours before the attack, and as he himself admitted, he was by himself, so I was really going to do something at first and then. When asked to clarify the statement, Felkel said, "I was going to shoot at him. I was going to shoot at him." The sheriff's department also said he referenced his intent to instill fear in the victim due to his race. This detail, combined with others, led to a charge of hate intimidation under the Richland County hate crime ordinance. He was also charged with assault and battery of a high and aggravated nature and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. And here people thought that white racists shooting at black joggers was just something limited to the Ahmaud Arbery incident, and at this time it didn't happen anywhere else. But as black people know, this happens all the time. It's just that, like with the video of the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, this race attack happened to also be caught on video too. The judge in this case set $1 million cash bond for the assault charge and a $1,075 cash bond, the maximum allowed, for the hate crime ordinance violation. If Felkel makes bond, he'll be under house arrest. Now, let's give credit where it's due. It was the black people of Richland County who had to fight to get this hate crime ordinance on the books in their county.
Richland County is the first county in our state to pass a hate crime ordinance. Richland County Councilwoman Tyra Little, right here on your screen, spearheaded the county's ordinance. Listen to her sit down and share an initial reaction to watching this Spring Valley surveillance video and a message to runners.
Justice should not be predicated upon where you live. And so for our citizens of Richland County, we want you to know that we are concerned. There's some trauma that comes with watching it. And so there will be some concerns. And so, we don't want people to panic. We want you to continue to, to go out and get your exercise, but we also have to be vigilant as well.
Now, the real question is, did the white neighbors out there in Richland County understand that there was a problem?
And we're a mixed community. I've been living here for 40 years, and I've never heard of an incident like this, ever.
I would love to believe that the neighbors and the people in my neighborhood, that something like that would never happen. But obviously it's kind of just a really close to home reminder that this can happen anywhere, and of the importance of the hate crime ordinance that's going on and any other measures that we can take to make sure something like this doesn't happen again.
So, in a development that will surprise absolutely no one, the white neighbors out there, even they knew that there was a problem. Maybe they hadn't had such a blatant and inarguable act of anti-black violence like this, but they know their neighbors too, and they already knew that there was a problem. But I wonder, how many of them supported the hate crime ordinance when it was being proposed, and how many of them instead said, well, we live in a mixed area, and there's never been any problem like this here, so we don't need a hate crime ordinance. That kind of thing will only divide people. How many of them talk like that? What made this creep think that he could even do something like this? The society he lives in. That's who. The racists and online sewers like 4chan and Reddit always push their lies and memes claiming that black people commit all the crimes in America and areas are safe until the Negroes move in. And yet, time and again, especially in these smaller enclaves as I've documented for you, whenever you have these quiet, so-called safe places that get shattered by violence, someone pulls some violent first out in those areas, it's always one of these white supremacists who does it. It's not Pookie or Ray Ray doing some drive-by shooting out in some suburb of the sticks. As the white guy said, he's been there 40 years in a mixed community and nothing like this has happened before. But as we know, what he really meant was nothing like this had ever happened to him. That's who he was really talking about. But this is how it almost always is. These white supremacists take full advantage of their racial privilege, And then we have people in the society who protect them and try to run interference for them, like the judge in this case. Now, I'm going to give my thoughts on this judge trying to help put this scumbag back on the streets in a moment, but first, I think it's great that you have black people in South Carolina who made this the law in their county. This is the kind of proactive stance black people need to be taking everywhere. It's also good that this law, passed only a little over a month ago, is already being put to good use, and it's being used against a white man accused of trying to kill a black person. This matters because when laws are passed, they're usually done in response to specific incidents. So people understand when these laws are passed, they're meant to actually apply specifically to people and specific folks in general. So, for the very first person prosecuted under this law to be a white supremacist who attacked a black man, that sets the proper precedent. All too often, black people fight to get laws on the books, and then these laws are used for the benefit of everyone except us. What happened here, the entire justification for it wasn't because of homophobia or so-called Islamophobia or trans whatever. This is about what it's supposed to be about, anti-black violence, which is the only racism on the planet, by the way. There is no other. We'll continue with the moment of truth in just a moment, but first, a word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, Power Tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready, and always carry your steel. Power Tools. Because no matter what your day job or side hustle may be, there's no excuse for not being ready to put in some work. There's about 2 states in the entire country that don't have a statewide hate crime law. South Carolina is one of them. And after this crime, there's now renewed calls for South Carolina to pass a statewide law just like the one in Richland County. Now, why did the black people of Richland County have to be the ones to establish a first-in-the-state hate crime law like this? Why didn't the white politicians there do it? Because, as these white supremacists themselves say, hate crimes laws are meant to criminalize being white. That's what these white supremacists said. That punishing racists for committing acts of violence is meant to be something that outlaws being white. They themselves have said that being white means committing violent crimes. So black people, as usual, are the only ones fighting for justice, the only ones trying to make everyone equal under the law. And yet, just like every other policy we've put on the books, none of these other groups had a thing to do with it. And yet, as usual, whenever they see us getting things done, they suddenly come out of the woodwork and want to come out of nowhere and try to make it all about them. For example, CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, on their website wrote of this incident, quote, "We welcome this first charge under the new hate crime law ordinance and hope the use of that groundbreaking ordinance helps deter those who might consider targeting members of minority communities." Yeah, you knew that word was coming. First of all, CARE didn't have the decency to even mention the word black, though predictably they did make sure to mention minorities. As Claude Anderson said, they shoehorned that in there as a way to take attention away from where it needs to be. And it's perverse as hell for CARE to be welcoming this. All the Muslim and Arab politicians in America, and not one of them pushed for a hate crime ordinance where they are. None of them have said a word or lifted a finger to enact hate crimes legislation at any level. And if they did, they would be bending over backwards to make sure that it applied only to either Arab Americans or, at the very most, only to Muslims. And even then, they'd be very selective about who gets prosecuted and for what. If they thought that this was such a great idea, why didn't they do it? All the Arabs and Muslims you have in Michigan, and they haven't organized themselves? Because they see themselves as honorary members of the oppressor class, that's why. The only reason that you see them chattering about this issue right now is because Israelis are running hog wild in the Middle East. But it's because everybody already knows that Arabs and Muslims in the United States are trying to be part of the dominant society, that they don't have any sort of political momentum for a law like that. So CARE needs to butt out. They had nothing to do with any of this. They wanted to be bystanders. So they need to go back to the sidelines and sit down. Let them celebrate the hate crimes laws that they got passed. Now, this Richland County hate crime ordinance is the very first in the state. But understand that there's lots of racist people who hate this. And I think the judge in this case, he wasn't giving it the old college try. $1 million bond? This is somebody who tried to commit an act of murder, especially when it's done on the basis of race and nothing else. There should be no bond because this animal is a threat to the community. But the judge looking to go, well, a threat to the black community. And next we'll have the white media and the judge and others trying to say that this guy is crazy or that perhaps he has multiple personality disorder or something, which is what they always do whenever some white racist is caught trying to harm a black person. You can take out your watch and count the seconds before they start screaming, he needs to have a mental evaluation. He clearly must be crazy. We got to get him some sort of psychiatrist to look at him and see what kind of mental disorder he has. That train is never late, and this is a defense that only applies to white offenders, particularly if they've tried to harm a black person. A black person, on the other hand, can be crazy as hell. They can be howling at the moon in court. They can prove that they have 5 different personalities, and as Paul Mooney said, the judge will still tell them, well, pick which one you want to be today because somebody's going to jail. They don't let black people get away with BS. So congratulations to Richland County for making a first strike against these racist punks in their midst. And this is why a hate crime law specifically for black Americans is a must at the federal level. It's not just racists in the red states that are the problems, though. They're not the only ones opposing this kind of legislation. Every time Democrats have control of the U.S. Congress, they give us lies and lectures about all the stuff they can't do. Meanwhile, they're making sure that Asian Americans have hate crimes laws specifically for them. So the same way we understand the Republicans to be the enemy, we recognize Democrats to be no different. In the meanwhile, be realistic about who your neighbors are. A so-called mixed community, and this violent racist punk was living there and not on anyone's radar until he did this. Black people have a right to self-defense. Doesn't matter if there's a hate crime law or ordinance where you live or not. This punk pulled a racist murder ambush on a black person just because. So when these white supremacists think that these bigoted ambushes are some sort of freebie that they get to have at no penalty, we need to make sure that we're in a position to show them that we're ready to take our best shot. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. BC, Reasonable Dude, Bo McLean, Williams, and Jonathan Maynard. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.